Welcome back. The next two array methods that we are going to learn are the flat and the flat map methods. And thankfully, these are very easy to understand. So let's go there. Now let's say that we have an array with some arrays in it. So essentially, we have a nested array like that. So let's say that 1, 2, 3, and then another array that is I'm giving 4, 5, 6, and then even some values like this, and this is perfectly normal. But what if we wanted is to take all these elements in the separate and put all of these together in just one big array, so which contains all the numbers here from 1 to 8. That is very simple using the new flat method. And they say new because flat and also flat map were introduced in years 2019, so they are pretty recent. And one more time, they will therefore not work in super old browsers. And actually that's it for the flat method. So no callback function, adjust like this. So we have that no callback function, adjust like this, and we get that the result of full array from 1 to 8. So here it removed the nested arrays and flattened the array. So which is why the method is called flat. So very nice, very simple, and no callback function this time. Now let's say that we have an array which is even deeper nested. So let's call it array deep. And so this one right now here only like one level of nesting. But let's say that these two here are in their own array still. And maybe these two here as well. And so now here we have an array inside of an array, and so that inside of an array. So let's see what happens when we flat this one. We got the same result. That is because I made this mistake. So we need to flatten array deep. And so now you will see that we get this result but still contains the two inner arrays. So this means that the flat method only goes one level deep. So, and when flattening the array, so this 3 here was inside the first level of nesting. And so therefore it was taken out and it's now in the main array. But then we still have this nested array here. So we can unfortunately fix that by using the depth argument. So right now basically flat is running with the 1 here as the depth. So if we run it with 1, which is the default, then we get this. But we can go 2 levels deep, and so we can get the same result as here before. And that is because it now goes even into the second level of nesting and also takes the element out of depth array. All right. So that's how flat works. But this example is not really that useful. And so let's go back to the bank accounts. And let's say that the bank itself wants to calculate the overall balance of all the movements of all the accounts. So how would we go about solving this problem? Well, first of all, we have all these movements stored in arrays. And these arrays are inside the objects in the accounts array. So in this array that we have been using, so accounts, that's the one. And this is where we have our movements. And so the first thing to do is to take them out of here and put them all into one array. So how would we do that? Now let's create a variable called account movements. And so that is equal accounts. And then we want to create in the new array, but the length is same, which contains only these movements array. So that's what I was just saying that. And we can use the map method. So in each account, take the account dot movements and so return that value. So into the new array, Now we have this array which then in turn contains the array of all the movements. And you see that now we actually have a nested structure here. So an array which contains the other array. And so probably you can see, because now I want an array which simply contains all of these values just in one array. So let's call this one all movements, and so it's gonna be account movements dot flat. Account movements dot flat, and we have only one level of nesting. So log this to console, and there is not even need for any parameter here for any argument. Now we get this nice array of the length 29 which all of these movements, and now all we have to do is to add them together, so which is pretty easy at this point. Now let's call this one here overall balance is equal to all movements dot reduce until we got the accumulator unto current movement, and we return accumulator plus movement, and we start with 0 plus movement and 0. And so I'm doing this all very fast here because I already explained all of this multiple times at this point. And so here we get the final result of adding up all of these values. That So these are originally, as we started in the separate movement arrays, that we were in turn the inside of the accounts object. And of course we can make this here a lot more beautiful. So instead of doing all of this separately, as you already know, we can use chaining. So we start with this here, and so building a new array out of the array of account objects. Then we flat the result, and then we add it all together like that, and then let's log all these to console. So just delete all of this and give it a save until we get the same result. Now it turns out that using a map first and then flattening the result, and it's pretty common operation, so that's exactly what we have here. So first we map and then we flat the result. So that's exactly what we have done here. So to solve this, there is another method that was also introduced at the same time, which the flat map. And so flat map essentially combines a map and a flat method. So just one method which is better for performance. And let's take a look here. But this time with flat map, so actually we can just copy it, copy and then paste here. And this is going to call it just the 2. And here we will now use flat map instead of that. And since flat map also does mapping, it needs to receive exactly the same callback as a map method. So this is essentially a map method that all it does is in the end, it then flattens the result. And so you see here the result is the same. Now just notice that flat map here only goes one level deep and we cannot change it. So if you don't need to go deeper than just one level, you still need to use the flat map method. Sorry, flat method. So anyway, keep these two in mind whenever you find yourself in a situation where you have nested the arrays and need to work them with. That happens more often than you think. So this is all about the session. See you in the next lecture. Thank you.